Here we're going to talk about finding the surface area of a cylinder. And so this formula is on the formula sheet, so you don't need to memorize it, but you do need to understand it and how to manipulate it in case you run into a word problem that's not entirely straightforward. So surface area of a cylinder is 2 pi RH, so that means 2 times pi. Remember, pi is really just representing a number that we estimate to 3.14, and that is also on the formula sheet, but just you need to be able to recognize this symbol and know that you can plug the number 3.14 in for that, and it's called pi, times radius times height. So when they're all written together like this, that means multiplication, plus 2 times pi, so 3.14, times radius squared. So make sure you remember that that is an exponent, that it's squared. It's not radius times 2, it's radius times radius. That's what radius squared means. So if you don't know what an exponent is, you need to watch that video. Also, if you don't know what radius is, there are several videos about circles. You need to know what radius and diameter are. So in case they give you a question that says diameter instead of radius, you know what to do with that. So what is a cylinder? A cylinder is really, you can think of it as a can. So here's a can. Just a can of beans. But this is in the shape of a cylinder. You can see on the top is a circle. On the bottom is also a circle. These two circles are the same as far as area goes. And then you have this curved area all around it. That's what a cylinder is. So when we're talking about surface area, remember when you're talking about area, you're thinking about covering something. Or a lot of times I think about it if I want to paint something. I need to know what the area is. So when we talk surface area, remember surface area relates to a three-dimensional object, whereas just normal area is a two-dimensional object. So here we're talking surface area of a cylinder, of something that looks like a can. And so we're just going to, you can think of it, you're going to paint the top and the bottom and all around the sides, around the label here, and that's going to give you your total surface area. That's what this formula is going to represent. So what you want to do is understand where these components come from, because it will help you in solving these problems. So we're going to start over here. 2 pi r squared. So you'll note that the top of this is a circle. So is the bottom. These circles are the same. If you look on your formula sheet, and hopefully maybe you even have this memorized, pi r squared is the formula for the area of a circle. So this part of this equation, when we're figuring out the total surface area of the cylinder, this part of it is telling us the area of the top and the area of the bottom, because pi r squared is giving us this area of this top. So it's the radius. Remember, radius is the length. You start in the middle and go out to the side. That's the radius. So pi r squared is going to give us the area of this circle. Now, why is there a 2 out in front of it? Because we have 2 of these circles. We have one on the top and one on the bottom. So this part of the formula is going to tell us how much we need to paint the top and the bottom. This part of the formula is going to tell us how much we need to go all around the sides. And so when we look at this formula, 2 pi RH, I want you to see something. If we cut the label here and we pull it apart, you can see that really it is just a rectangle. And so when you're trying to find the area of the sides that go all the way around, really you're thinking of it, you're painting this label, right, all the way around. And if you pull it apart, you can see that it's a rectangle. Here's the bottom of the rectangle, so the length, and then the width is the side here. And so you probably memorized that to find the area of a rectangle is just length times width. And so that's what we're going to do here too. So how do we find the length of this side of the rectangle? Well, if you look at this circle, we're really looking at, to find the length of this, is really the circumference of this circle. So hopefully you can see that. We want to find the length from this side to this side. So this length is going to be the circumference of this circle. If you don't know what circumference is, please watch that video as well. So if you have it memorized, or you can look on your formula sheet, what is the circumference of a circle? It's 2 pi r. 2 times pi times radius. That's the circumference of a circle. So if we want to find the length of this rectangle, of the label, we find the circumference of this circle. That is going to give us the length of this. The width, so if we're thinking of this as a rectangle, remember the area is length times width. The width, or this side here, is generally called the width in your rectangle. That's just the height in this formula. The height of our cylinder is right here. So we're taking length times width. The length is 2 pi r. The width is the height. So this part of the formula is just finding the area of all the sides of this, label, if it's easier to think of that. So that's what the formula is doing. This part of it, finding the area all around, if we're going to paint the whole label. This part of it, finding the area of the top and bottom. So we're going to add those two together to get the total surface area. So let's do a couple of example problems. So let's say we have a cylinder, and they tell us that the radius is 8 inches and the height is 12 inches. What is the surface area? So all we're going to do is plug these numbers into the formula. So here we have surface area equals 2 times pi. Remember, pi is really just 3.14, so I'm going to write that as 3.14 times the radius. They told us the radius is 8, times the height. They told us the height is 12. Remember, when you write things in a row with parentheses, that means multiplication. So here we have that part of the equation. Now we have 2 times pi. Again, I'm going to write that as 3.14 times radius squared. Radius is 8 squared. So remember, we have this exponent. Remember, your order of operations is that you have to do the exponent first, and then you do the multiplications, and then you do the addition. So 8 times 8 is 64, so that's what 8 squared is. If you plug this into your calculator, so I'm going to let you're going to first plug in that multiplication, and you're going to get 602.88 plus, so we can't add these yet until we do both multiplications, but make sure you do 8 squared first. Don't multiply this out and then hit the squared button, because you're not going to get the right answer. So do 8 squared times 3.14 times 2, and you're going to get 401.92. Now we can do the addition. 1004.8 was inches squared. Remember, this is an area problem. All area problems end in square units. So the surface area for this cylinder is 1004.8 inches square. I want to show you how to do this same problem, but sometimes on the test they may leave the answer in terms of pi. And so if they do that, I want you to know how to do that. When they say it's left in terms of pi, that just means we leave this symbol there instead of actually putting the number in and multiplying out the number. So I'll show you how we would do this same exact problem. So let's say you look at all the answers and there's a pi symbol in the answer. So if there is, you don't want to be putting 3.14 in, because at the end you're not going to get the right, you're not going to recognize an answer. So if we leave it in terms of pi, we do the same thing. So I'm just doing the same problem, but leaving it in terms of pi. 2 times pi. So I'm just going to leave pi there. I'm not going to put 3.14. I'm just going to leave pi. Times r, the radius, which is 8, times height, which is 12, plus 2 times pi. Again, I'm just going to leave that symbol there, pi. It represents a number, so we're just going to leave it there, times r squared. So radius is 8 squared. You do the math that you can do. Don't worry about the pi symbol, just leave it alone. So 2 times 8 times 12 is going to be 192. And remember, you still have that pi. You didn't do anything with it, so you leave it there. Plus 2 times 8 squared. So again, remember to do 8 squared first. So it's 2 times 64, which is 128 pi. You still have the pi symbol there. You haven't done anything with it yet, so it's still there. And this is multiplication. So now you have 192 pi plus 128 pi. So all you do is add the two numbers together. 192 plus 128, and you're going to get 320 pi. So if you can almost think of it as physical pies. If I told you you have 192 pies and you're going to add 128 pies, how many do you have? Well, you have 320 pies. So that is the answer to this question when we leave it in terms of pi. It'd be 320 pi. So if you see an answer, all your answers have this pi symbol in it, this is how you want to do it. Don't put that number in, 3.14, just leave the pi symbol. Now, what does this mean? It means 320 times pi. So if you want to check your answer, just plug in your calculator 320 times 3.14, because remember, this is just representing a number. You'll find 320 times 3.14, and you're going to get 1004.8. And again, this would be inches squared. Let's do another problem. Let's say this time they give you a cylinder, but they give you the diameter. And let's say the diameter is 12 feet and the height is 5 feet. What's the surface area? So again, go to the formula sheet, plug in the numbers that you know. 2 times pi, let's use 3.14, we'll say it's not left in terms of pi, times radius. So here's where they're going to get you. If they give you the diameter, you can't use the diameter. You have to use the radius. So don't just blindly plug 12 in there. They've given you the diameter, you need the radius. So if you don't know the relationship between diameter and radius, you need to watch that video. But essentially radius is half of the diameter. So in this question, half of 12 is 6. So we're going to plug 6 in for that, times the height, which is 5, plus 2 times 3.14 times the radius squared. Again, the radius is not 12, it's half of that, which is 6. 6 squared. Plug that into your calculator. Make sure you're doing the exponent first and you're multiplying before you're adding. You get 188.4 plus 226.08. And if you add those together, you're going to get 414.48. And this was feet, so it's feet squared. We're going to do one last problem that's going to be a little bit more complicated and involve some algebra. So, they tell you that the surface area of a cylinder is 659.4 yards. The diameter is 14 yards. they want to know what is the height. So we're not trying to figure out the surface area. They've given us a surface area. We need to figure out what the height is. So this is an algebra problem. If you don't know how to do algebra problems, you need to watch the algebra videos. So again, we're just going to look at the formula, plug in what we know, and then solve for the height. So SA, surface area, is 659.4. So that's what we're going to plug in. 659.4 equals 2 times 3.14 times the radius. So again, they've given us the diameter. We need the radius, not the diameter. The radius is half of the diameter. 14 divided by 2 is 7 times the height. Well, we don't know the height. That's what we're going to have to figure out. So for now, we're just going to leave the h there. Plus 2 times pi, 3.14, times radius squared. Remember, it's 7 squared. 7 times 7 is 49. So now we do as much math as we can. So here we can do 2 times 3.14 times 7. And we're going to get 43.96 times the height. We weren't able to do anything with the height, so we leave it there. Plus 7 times 7 is 49 times 3.14 times 2. And you're going to get 307.72. So now we have an algebra problem where we have to solve for height. So hopefully you know how to do this. If not, watch the videos. But we're going to try and get height by itself. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of this 307.72. And how are we going to get rid of that on that side? We're going to subtract it. If we subtract it on one side, we have to subtract it on both sides so that the equation stays equal. So 307.72 minus 307.72 equals 0. So on this side, we're just left with 43.96 times h. 659.4 minus 307.72 is going to be 351.68. So now we have 351.68 equals 43.96 times height. We want to get height by itself, so how do we get rid of the 43.96? We divide each side by 43.96. Remember, you have to do it on both sides. If this doesn't make sense to you, you need to watch the algebra videos. 351.68 divided by 43.96 is 8. This cancels out, and all you're left is h. So your height equals 8 yards. And that is the answer to this problem.